Right. Good evening, everyone. So, what we are discussing last class? Exception and so yesterday we have completed what is an exception, what is the need of an exception, what will happen when an exception is raised. Then next, we also learn how can we terminate an exception. Sorry, how can we throw an exception? Okay, how can we throw an exception by using the keyword throw? Then next, how can we report an exception? Come on. How can I report an exception by using throws? Okay. Next, how can we stop terminating a program abnormally? We must go for exception handling. Okay, let me write, no problem like this. How can we handle exception? By using wrong answer. How can I catch exception? I didn't say. I asked the question, how can we handle exception? Huh? By using keywords. Which keyword? Wrong answer. How can we stop terminating a program abnormally? By handling exception or by catching exception? By handling exception, not by catching. By handling an exception. Okay, how can we handle exception? Wrong answer. All people are feeling that we can handle exception by catching. No, we can handle exception in two ways. Number one, by reporting the exception to method caller. Number two, by catching. So there are two ways, two options here. When an exception raised in your program, either you can catch exception by your own directly or inform this exception to the your method caller. Okay. Then how to throw exception? By using the keyword throw. Yesterday, I have only taught you how to throw exception and how to catch exception. Now, but I didn't teach you how can we report an exception. How can we report exception? By using throws keyword. Next, how can we catch an exception? By using try catch. Okay. Next, what is the syntax to catch an exception? What the syntax to throw an exception? What the syntax to throw an exception? Throw following by exception object, new keyword constructor. Okay, the next. How can we throw an exception with an error message? We must pass that error message to constructor. Pass as an argument. Okay, then that exception will be stored in an object and it will throw. Next point. What is the syntax? What is the syntax to report an exception? What the syntax to report an exception? Tell me, what the syntax? We didn't discuss this point in last class. Tell me, who are you? This is the addition class developer. You are the addition class developer. I am the calculator class developer. A addition class developer will show this entire method logic to the user class developer. Okay, even though you are showing the entire logic, is user class developer interested to read the logic you develop? No. He will look at only the prototype of the method. Tell me, what is the prototype of the method you are telling? This method is a static method. Okay, it is a static. You are telling it is a return type method. So variable assignment required. It has a 2 parameters. So I have to pass arguments. Except that, did you tell anything? Did you inform me that you are throwing exception from your method? No. If you don't inform me, will I write try catch blocks? No. I don't write try catch blocks. When I don't write try catch block, then what happened? Control F11. When I run my project by giving knowingly or unknowingly, I got a big exception message, which will terminate my program abnormally. Na? Is it a good idea, bad idea? Whenever you are throwing an exception from your method, you must inform to the user programmer that I am throwing exception. How to write now? Throws. Which exception you are throwing? Illegal argument exception. After throws keyword in the prototype, I should mention object exception object type. Object type. So as a return type, you are mentioning value or type? Type. Same way, exception also you must mention what type. Then now tell me, what the syntax for reporting an exception? The syntax is throws following by exception class name. We must place in the method body or in the method prototype. In the method prototype. In the method prototype, I must place throws exception class name. Then tell me what by seeing this throws keyword, are you throwing exception or just reporting exception? By seeing this throws keyword, who will get information? Compiler software. Who will get information? Compiler software and also user programmer. Sir, yesterday I have not written throws illegal argument exception. Then tell me, is it if I don't write, if we don't place, if you don't report, if I don't read exception, will it be thrown to method caller or calling method? If I don't report exception, will it be thrown to the method caller? Come on, expecting answer. Yes or no? Na? How can you say that? I have not written throws keyword yesterday, but still exception came or not? Catch, identify exception. So tell me, yesterday I have not written throws illegal argument exception, right? Then exception came to the main method when I pass negative number or not? Don't pass negative number. So that means, is the throws keyword have any operation at runtime? Is the throws keyword performing any operation at runtime? No. Okay. Tell me, is the throws keyword performing any operation at runtime? What the answer? No. So who will throw exception? Throw keyword. Excellent. Who will throw exception? Throw keyword. Throw keyword will throw exception, and that exception will move from the current method to calling method. Who will catch exception? Try catch will catch exception. Then what throws keyword is doing? Throws keyword has work only at development and compilation time. At runtime, it do nothing. At the development time, throws keyword will tell to the compiler, array, from this method I am throwing this exception. And telling to the developer, from this method I am throwing this exception. Then the developer will go and write try catch block for the method call. This method caller will surround this method calling statement with what? Try catch to stop the program abnormal termination. Everyone understand? Right. Really understood? So this is a big confusion. What is the difference between throw and throws? So finally tell me 16th point. Biggest confusion point. What are the differences between throw and throws? Well, minimum 3-4 points you have to tell. First point, throw is used for throwing an exception. Throws is used for reporting an exception. Second point, after throw keyword, we must place try catch. After throw word, what should I place? Exception object. After throws keyword, we must place exception class name. Type exception class name. After throw keyword, we must place exception object. After throws keyword, we must place exception class name. Next, throw keyword is allowed only inside method body. Throws keyword is allowed only inside method prototype. After method signature. After parenthesis, method signature. Next, after throw keyword, how many exceptions I can throw? By using single throw keyword, how many exceptions we can throw? One throw keyword, one exception only. After throws keyword, how many exceptions I can mention? All exceptions you are throwing from the method. Multiple exceptions I can mention with a comma separator. With a comma separator, you can mention. मेरे सिस्टम में मिलेगा. इधर आओ अर्पित कनुगो. ये पेज मेरे सिस्टम में मिलेगा. हैदराबाद को एक फ्लाइट बुक करके आओ. आज रात को लेके जाओ. ओके ना? समझ में आया? हाँ. All our points understood? Right. So totally how many points are there? 4. Repeat once again. What the first point? Throw is used for throwing an exception. Throws is used for reporting an exception. After throw keyword, we must place exception object. After throws keyword, we must place exception class name. Throw statement must be placed only inside method definition. Throws keyword must be placed in the method prototype after method signature. Next, using throw keyword, we can throw only one exception. After throws keyword, we can place multiple exception. And very important point you cannot understand. Generally, we use throw keyword for throwing checked exception. Which exception? What is checked exception? I will tell you. Okay? Just accept it. Generally, we will use the throw keyword for throwing checked exception. Throws keyword, we will all, if required, we will also throw unchecked exception also. Now, illegal argument exception is a checked exception or unchecked exception? Unchecked exception. How can I say it is an unchecked exception? If I remove this throws keyword, then compiler software is forcing us to handle this exception. Control, look at that. There is no compile time error. Na? I am throwing this exception. I didn't catch that exception, or I'm not reporting exception. Even though I didn't catch, even though I didn't report, there is no compile time error. That means, tell me, handling this exception is mandatory or optional? When we throw an exception by using throw keyword, repeat again. When we throw an exception by using throw keyword, or when we receive an exception by calling the method, if I don't handle that exception, either by reporting or by catching, if I don't get compiler, then that exception is called what? Checked or unchecked? Unchecked. And compiler is not checking the handling of exception. An exception whose handling is optional is called what? Unchecked exception. An exception whose handling is mandatory is called what? Checked exception. That means when we throw or when we receive an exception, if I don't handle that exception, if I don't get any compile time error, then that exception is called what? Unchecked exception. If we got compile time error for uncompiler forcing us to handle that exception, then we call it as what? Checked exception. Everyone understand? Tell me. How to handle checked exception? 2 ways. Either by reporting or by catching. Tell me. I want to report the exception. How can I report exception? By using throws keyword. So tell me. Throws keyword, reporting exception, mandatory for checked or unchecked? Unchecked exception, mandatory reporter. Checked exception is mandatory to report. Unchecked exception is mandatory, optional. Optional to report. Everyone understand? Tell me, fifth point. By using throw keyword, we will throw checked and unchecked exception. In general, we will throw checked exception. By using throws keyword, we can report both checked and unchecked exception. It is a mandatory to report checked exception, optional to report unchecked exception. Generally, we don't report unchecked exceptions. That's my point. Generally, we don't report unchecked exception. Only we will report what? Checked exception. And of course, it is mandatory. So these are the total 5 points. You have to answer to the interview. If you ask, compulsory ask, what the difference between throw and throws? Because many people are feeling throws will throw exception. Let me show you that. Now, I am commenting the statement. Okay. And I am placing some dummy return value 0. Okay. Right, tell me. Now, if I comment this throw statement and I'm placing throws keyword, is exception going? Exception coming? No. Control F11 minus 10 and 20. What the result coming? 0. Exception came or not came on? That means, is the throws keyword throwing exception or throws keyword just reporting exception? It is just reporting exception. By seeing the throws keyword information, user class programmer will catch the exception or report that exception further to the next method caller. So throws keyword never throw exception. Only throw keyword will throw exception and try catch will catch that exception. So this throws keyword just it is a mediator. Can I say it's a kind of interface? Yes. Interface is a contract between implementation class developer and user class developer. Interface will tell what implementing by the implementation class developer, so that user class programmer will call that method to perform that operation, right? Now in the business logic, I am throwing exception. What exception I'm throwing? My user programmer don't know. Then what is the contract between them? Throws illegal argument exception. We all understand? Yes. I will upload. I will create these things once again. I am deleting. Are you completing the given assignment works? Yes, sir. What was that? Types of inheritances completed. Yeah. Now, hope you all are working on inner classes. Yes. 6 p.m. batch. Same assignment there for you also, right? Okay, tomorrow 6 o'clock I cannot take a class. Can I take class at 9 p.m.? Nine p.m. Not 9 a.m. Tomorrow, yeah, 6 p.m. Possible 9 a.m. No, right? 6 p.m. not possible, no. Office work employees also there. Tomorrow, I cannot take class. As a compensation class, can I take class tomorrow 9 p.m. or Sunday? Nine p.m. online. Sunday also online only. Sunday Class will be 8 p.m. Decide one time or holiday. Ah, online students. Your semester exam running for 9 p.m. Which college, ra? Okay, tomorrow 9 p.m. I am taking class. Attend online. Hey, there is an intelligent question asked by Aravind. Okay, so read it. Office hours, sir. Are you a working employee, Ashutosh? Anyways, you know, na, working employee means you know everything, right? Then why you are worrying? Ah, bolo. Is the question understood? You are using illegal argument exception with both throw and throws. But you said that we have to use a class name with a throws statement. Aravind Sharma, what is illegal argument exception? Object. What is an object? What is a student? What student? Other students don't reply. Student is object. Then what is new student? Hey, what are you doing, Ray? Reply fast. Why you are wasting time? Huh? New student is the object. Student is instance of a student class. Where is the class? Which class? What is the name of the class? Then what? Hey, tomorrow no class. Some people not possible to attend. They have office works. So tomorrow holiday. Try to spend the time on assignments. Sunday no class. Next class is on next day. I said there is no class tomorrow. That means next class is today. Why you are confusing? Hello, Mr. Aravinder. You didn't answer my questions. Why you are silent? What is a student? Student is a person, worst fellow, tumri fellow, brainless fellow. Student is a class name. New student is a object created from the class student. Understood? Illegal argument exception is a class name. New illegal argument exception is the object created from the class illegal argument exception. Okay, na? After throw keyword, you should write new illegal argument exception. After throws keyword, you should write illegal argument exception. What is illegal argument exception? Class name. Understood? Too much thinking. Huh? Don't think that much. Side effects will come. Last class, I told you what is an exception. An exception is an instance of throwable or one of its subclasses. Now throwable is the subclass of object. Everyone, listen. Throwable is a subclass of object. Now the exceptions are divided into two types: error type exceptions and exception type exceptions. Exception type exceptions are again divided into two types: runtime exceptions and direct subclasses of exception. The direct subclasses of exceptions are technically called checked exception. Throwable is a class name. Error is a class name. Exception is a class name. Runtime exception is a class name. Checked exception is not a class name. It is a concept name. Is it clear? It's just a concept name. It is not a class name. Now, again repeating. Yesterday we completed throw, and today we have understood throws, also understood try catch. So throw keyword doesn't have any, throws keyword doesn't have any functionality at runtime. Throw keyword used for throwing exception. Throws keyword is used for reporting exception. Try catch is used for catching the exception that is throwing from the method. That's it. Story completed. Okay. Now we need to understand more about types of exceptions. What yesterday I told you, an exception is a object which is an instance of a throwable or it's one of the subclasses. How many subclasses are there? So many. Then how all the subclasses are organized in two categories. Number one, error type exceptions. Number two, exception type exceptions. Now, how many kinds of exceptions we have? Two kinds of exception. Types of exceptions: error, runtime exception, and checked exception. Error and exception. What the difference between error and exception? Error type exception represents the problems occurred, the runtime errors occurred from the JVM memory level problems. Tell me, if I call a method inside its own body, then it become recursive call, na? Keep on running, and Java stacks area is filled. There is no space for creating new stack frame. We'll get stack overflow error. Next, I am creating objects inside heap and then adding to array or collection. Now that object is never eligible for garbage collection. I'm keep on creating object inside an infinite loop. Then definitely at some point of the time, heap area space is filled. There is no chance to create new object. Then we will get another problem out of memory error. Next, I am trying to ask the JVM, load the class and execute the class. Now it is searching for the class. Class is not found. Then it will throw. It is getting another problem. Class not found. Na? Class is found, but internally its a bytecode is not properly there. Okay, if some format problems are there, then JVM again getting one more problem. To represent all these problems, for each problem to represent, I should have separate exception. Na? Those exceptions are error type exceptions, error subclasses. Understand? So exceptions are divided into how many types? Two types: error type exceptions and exception type exception. Error type exceptions are representing the runtime errors occurred from the JVM problem, JVM memory level problems. Tell me, if class format error I got, no class def error got, or stack overflow error I got, out of memory I got. If I catch these exceptions, any user, no user, JVM level problems if you got, what should I do now? I have to shut down the program and restart the program by solving that problem now.
Yes.
That means error type exceptions, handling or catching, useful or useless?
Useless.
Useless. Either reporting or catching, both are useless. That means handling these exceptions are must be mandatory or optional? Optional, because these errors, these exceptions will come at a compilation time? No. That means at a compilation time, developer can write throw new stack overflow error? Never. Throw new out of memory error? Never. Because these exceptions are meant for representing stack level problems, JVM heap level problems at runtime. That means these exceptions appeared means throw keyword with exception object creation, come only at what time? Runtime. And the exception throwing statement with the throw keyword is available part of what? JVM software. Am I teaching heavy? Okay, na? Are you catching my point?
Yes,
Or else shall I make it simplify?
yes.
Okay. Error type exceptions are coming at what time? Runtime. Compilation time we never throw. Then catching this exception or reporting this exception, making it as a mandatory to handle or report or catch is useful or useless? Useless. Then this exception is a checked exception or unchecked exception? Unchecked exception. Understand my point? Right. So repeat 3 points. First point number 1. The exception which is representing JVM level problems or what type of exceptions? Error type exceptions. Number 2. Error type exceptions will occur only during runtime. As a programmer, we don't throw. So these exceptions are unchecked exceptions. Handling or catching these exceptions are used. So catch exceptions. Is it clear? Next. Now I am writing program. I am writing my own program. When I am writing my own program, inside the program, can I write some if conditions to find the given value right or wrong?
Yes.
Then who is throwing the given values are wrong? Programmer. Next, I am using some operators.
Yes.
When I use operator, some operator value may be wrong. For example, I am taking division operator. Division operator, I am dividing by 0, integer number 0. Then at a compilation time, can compiler know that integer number cannot divided by 0? It's a wrong operation? No. Who knows? Only JVM knows. Then who is throwing that operator problem exception? JVM. Does compiler know there is a chance we'll get exception? No. Operator failures exceptions are known to compiler or doesn't know? Na? Doesn't know. Dot I am using with a null reference. Okay, null reference at a variable dot null pointer exception, null reference at a variable dot non-static member I am using. Then we'll get null pointer exception or not?
Yes.
Next, I'm using casting. Now the object available in the reference variable, subclass or same class or super class, or does compiler know it? No. Who knows it? JVM. Then JVM throwing exception is known to compiler? No. Can we ask compiler, right? Compiler, you must identify exception coming or not? You must identify, you should catch, you should report. Can I say that? No. Then tell me, program level coming exceptions are again 2 types. Number because of operator failure exceptions, because of wrong inputs given by the user known to whom? Programmer. Programmer known problems. Okay, programmer checking and programmer throwing exceptions. So JVM memory level problems, 1 category. Second one is what? Operator failures category. Number 3 is what? Programmer checking and throwing the exception, 3rd category. JVM throwing exceptions are known to the compiler? No. JVM throwing exceptions are considered as what? Unchecked exceptions. So don't say JVM throwing exceptions are unchecked. Just for your knowledge sake, I am telling. What the final definitions I will tell you. Okay. Then next, other exceptions are there which are throwing by programmer. When programmer will throw exception, carefully observe. I am writing one logic to connect it to a file. The file must be available now. File available or not available, at what time I should decide? Compilation time only I should go and verify file available or not. If the file is not available at compilation time, at runtime file is available? No. Next, Now I am connecting to the database. When I connecting to the database URL, username, password available or not, correctly or not, we have to verify. At what time we have to verify? Compilation time. At compilation time, if the given wrong values are wrong, if the given values are wrong, at runtime, definitely we will get a problem or not? Then the exceptions representing resources missing must verify at a compilation time or runtime? Compilation time. At runtime, we will face definitely problem on project terminated abnormally. Are those problems solved by the end user? Cannot solve? Cannot solve. So the exceptions, those representing resources missing problem must be verified at a compilation time, handled at compilation time. Those exceptions must be checked exception. So totally how many kinds of exceptions we have? 3. Error type exceptions representing JVM level problem, runtime exceptions representing operator failures, checked exceptions representing resource missing problems. Okay, got clarity here? Then what is the difference between error, exception? Read it. The exception, those are subclasses of error, are called error type exception. When we get these exception, we will get these exception when there is a problem in JVM memory level. Error type exception represent JVM internal problems. We don't catch error type exception because no use of them. We cannot recover the situation. Why we cannot recover situation? Now out of memory error problem came. I catch the exception. What can I do? I cannot do anything. I have to shut down the program and then I have to adjust the memory about our program or increase the memory size. I have to do that. Are you following? Next, if I got stack overflow error, I catch that exception. What the use of it? No use. I have to shut down the program. Inside the program, I should write some if condition to come out from that recursion. So now exception, error type exceptions, if I can, is there any user? No user, no use. Then exception type exception. The exception classes, those are derived from the exception class, are called exception type exception. We will get exception type exceptions when there is a problem in Java level or API level. Or because of wrong logic. Wrong inputs are wrong logic problems will be represented by exception type exceptions. Tell me now, if I catch exception type exception, can I recover the situation? Wrong value 0 you are passing. By catching exception, I told, Are Babu, wrong value you are passing 0, pass correct value. Can he pass correct value and close the program or not? We must catch exception type exception to recover the problem and recover the problem termination and terminate program execution smoothly or normally. All people understand error and exception first? Again, exception is of how many types? 2 types. Exception type exceptions again divided into 2 types. Runtime exception, checked exception. Runtime exception is a class name. Checked exception is not class name. It is just a concept name. The exception classes, those are subclasses of runtime exception, are called runtime type classes. These exceptions are raised because either wrong values or because of wrong values. And operator failure, wrong values, operator failure because of wrong values. These exceptions are thrown either by JVM or by programmer by checking some condition. By checking some condition. These exceptions are optional to handle. No need to report or no need to catch. And a throws keyword no need to use, try catch no need to use. If I don't use the throws or report, then compiler throw error, will not throw error, will not throw error. Checked exception. Come on, tell me. The exception classes or direct subclasses of throwable or exception are called checked exception. The exception classes, those are direct subclasses of throwable or exception, are called checked exception. These exception classes are called checked exception because of 2 reasons. Reason number 1, these exceptions are thrown only by programmer by checking one condition. These exception handling is checked by compiler. If you don't handle, compiler will throw an error. Because this exception handling checking by compiler, that's why this exception is called what? Checked exception. error type exception, runtime exception, handling is not checked by compiler. That's why they are called what? Unchecked exception. Now, come on, look at the hierarchy diagram. Full clarity. Right. So I have throwable class divided into two types, error and exception. Exception is again divided into two types, runtime exception and checked exception. Error and its subclasses, runtime exception and its subclasses are technically called what? Unchecked exception, because these exceptions are handling, not checking by compiler. These exceptions are thrown by only JVM, and those exception handling is not checking by compiler. Next, throwable exception and their direct subclasses are called checked exception. These exceptions are only thrown by can compiler throw exception? No, right? Throwable exception and their direct subclasses are called checked exception. These exceptions are only thrown by programmer by using the keyword throw. Then will compiler come across that exception throwing line? Try to understand. Throwable exception and their direct subclasses are only thrown by whom? Programmer. How programmer can throw exception? Inside a program, I should write throw new exception class name. Na? When you compile this program, is the compiler knows one exception is throwing in this program. How much time you will take? Come on, respond fast. Understood or no? Na? I am throwing exception. Throw new illegal argument exception. Program written already. Tell me. Now this exception, who is throwing? You. When you compile the program, compiler come to class edition, compiler come to add method, compiler come to if condition. Inside if condition, compiler has a scene. Throw new illegal argument exception. If you throw exception, compiler can see the exception throwing statement. All you guys understood? If the same line is available in JVM compiler, that's what I am saying. If a JVM throwing exception, does it known to compiler? If you are throwing exception, is compiler know that error? Yes. Okay, na? Repeat once again. Error type exception, who will throw? Runtime exceptions, who will throw? Again repeating. Error type exception, who will throw? Runtime actions, who will throw? Say answer to the what I am expecting. Don't answer what you want. Okay. What I am expecting? Then answer JVM. Why you are adding mashallah? That mashallah is confusing you and not understanding what I want to tell. Okay, na? Tell me again. Who is throwing error type exception? Who is throwing runtime exception? Okay, na? Don't add. No. Who will throw throwable exception and the direct subclasses? Only programmer. Will JVM throw those exceptions? Never. Why? Throwable exception and direct subclasses represent resources missing problem. I am asking JVM, load dot class file. Dot class file is a resource or not? Yeah. Is a JVM can know that which class you want your project? No. Then we use class dot for name. You are asking JVM to load the class. Then who is loading class? Class loader. Class loader is requested by using which method to load class? Class dot for name. Inside class dot for name, the for name developer is looking into hard disk whether the dot class file is available or not. If not available, he himself throwing exception saying class not found exception. Then who throwing that exception? Programmer throwing. Okay, na? Next question. Now, you yourself searching for a file. You want to connect to a file. To connect to a file, yesterday I told you, file reader one class I have to use. Then you have written file reader fr equal to new of abc.txt file. Then file reader class constructor internal logic is finding abc.txt file available or not. If not available, then file reader class constructor developer should throw an exception. Then tell me, who is finding the file available or not? Programmer. Then if not available, who is throwing exception? Programmer. That means the resources missing problems are known to JVM or programmer. Then who should throw the exception? Then the exceptions are representing resources are only thrown by programmer. All people understand? Yes. Repeat once again. Who will throw error type exception? Who will throw runtime exception? Who will throw throwable exception and their subclasses? Only by programmer. Programmer is throwing those exceptions blindly by checking condition. Checking condition. Given dot class available, no, throw exception. Given file available, no, throw exception. With the given URL, username, password, database is available, no, throw exception. That means he is checking one condition and throwing exception. Tell me, if the exception is throwing by checking one file available, or that file must be make it available at what time? Runtime or compilation time? That means compiler is responsible for informing to the developer, "Arey developer, you are throwing this exception. You didn't handle. You only throwing. You only should handle. You are not understanding. Then who is responsible to understand? Ayya, you only should understand. I am explaining something. You are thinking different way. I am teaching different way. You has to connect to me. I should connect. You should connect. Whose problem? Your problem. Who should solve your problem? You only. I cannot solve. Not only I, your parent also cannot solve. Not only parent, God also cannot solve. Your problem you have to solve. Okay? How many types of exception? Not understand, sir. If he sits silently, not understand, then who will understand? Interviewer will understand, "Ayyo, this fellow not understand the exception. Let me give job and help him." Understand? Yes. Whose problem has to solve? Your problem, you only has to solve. When you are throwing class not found exception, who has to handle? You. How to handle? How can we handle exception? Two ways. By reporting, by catching. I don't want to handle, I want my caller to handle. Then write what? Throws class not found exception. No, I will only handle. Then write try catch. So tell me, checked exception handling is optional or mandatory? Because you are throwing, you handle. Understood? Now the next question. Sir, in my program, I will throw unchecked exception, either error or runtime exception. I myself will throw. Should I handle or not required? Not required, because that exception is of which category exception? Unchecked exception category. Unchecked exception category will compiler will force you to handle. That's it. This exception you should not handle. Sorry, this runtime exception or error type exception you must not throw. You are throwing, that is your mistake. Collection chapter I will teach, but you are learning yourself and you are not understanding yourself. Then whose mistake? Your mistake. Without I am teaching, why you are studying? You have to wait until I teach. No sir, I will try. Okay, you tried. Then you don't understand. That is your problem. How can you blame me? Understood? Error type exception, exception type exception must throw by whom? JVM. You are not allowed to throw. But you taking initiation, sir, like JVM requirement, I also have a requirement. I will throw for my project. Okay, throw. But you are not checking my, I'm throwing, you are not informing. Tumri fellow, that is unchecked exception category. So I will not look at it, whether you handle or not handle. And then I know I want you handle. Then create the same kind of exception as checked exception. Don't use runtime exception. You create your own exception as checked exception, so that I will handle and I will force you to handle. Then you will handle, your program will be terminated normally. Ardhamautunda? And tell me now, if interviewer ask a question, how many types of exceptions does Java support? 2 types you have to tell. How many types? What are the 2 types? According to Sun Microsystem, 3 kinds of exception: error, runtime exception, check exception. But people combined error and runtime exception as unchecked exception. So if interviewer ask a question, how many types of exception does Java support? What you should say? 2 types of exception. Number 1, checked exception, unchecked exception. What is checked exception? An exception whose handling is mandatory. Whose handling is mandatory is called checked exception. When we throw checked exception, if a compiler checking its handling, and if I don't handle, if it throws compile time error, then that exception is called checked exception. Any difficulty? When you are going out of your house, your father get a doubt on you. Okay. Then immediately your father calling, Ray, and then checking your pockets and then allowing you to go. Then what type of exception you are? Okay. You went to office as a security person. When you are leaving the office, other security checking your body. Okay. Whether you are taking anything out of that office or not checking, right? You are a software engineer. You got the job. You join in the company. Can you send any email out of the office? Allowed? Can you take any paper out of the office? No. You have to go with empty hands, empty pockets, and you have to come out of empty hands and empty pockets. That means you are a unchecked exception or checked exception. You are a checked exception. Understood? Yes. Checked exception is good or bad? Bad. Bad or good? Bad. Bad. Come on, good or bad? It's good. Why? Checked. You handle or not. If you don't handle compiler throwing error, that means at every stage there is a proper checking, so that properly handle, properly catch, and program normally, abnormally. Okay. Olden days, you are allowed into shopping malls without checking. Then what happened? Terrorists has taken it as an advantage and put bombs and blast everything, right? Yes. Tell me, unchecked exception is a good or bad? Because of unchecked exception, our life will be terminated normally, abnormally. Actually, we should live for 100 years. Because of these bombs, unchecked exception, life is terminated abnormally. Now, options are good. But in people are exceptions are good, checked exceptions are bad, because it's mandatory to handle. Why should I handle? I don't handle. If you don't handle, a project terminated abnormally. And some faculties are teaching you strongly convincing you checked exceptions. Exception should be exceptions are bad. Sorry, checked exceptions are bad. Unchecked exceptions are good. Then ask them, sir, if unchecked exceptions are good, if you say, then handling that exception is unchecked. Unchecked exception handling is optional. If I forgot to catch that exception, program terminated abnormally. The values what I have entered in the previous lost now, sir. Then for example, my project is mobile recharge project Paytm I am taking. In Paytm, I am connecting to the bank, deduct the money from the bank account, adding that amount to the mobile account. When deducting the money from the bank account, there is no problem. Deducted money came to the Paytm account. From the Paytm account, that money is adding to my mobile account. During that, some problem occurred. Program terminated abnormally. If exception is not handled, some problem coming under exception only, na? Network problem or problem occur, or you refresh the page or close the page, some reason that before adding that amount to your mobile account, program terminated. When program is about to terminate, if I have compulsory have a code to catch that exception in the catch block, I can write the logic adding that money either to Paytm wallet or adding that money back to your bank account. Na? If that network issue exception is an unchecked exception, while writing the code, I forgot to handle that exception. I don't know at the compilation time, I don't know that exception may occur at runtime. Then I didn't write try catch. I didn't write exception handling code. The money deducted from the bank account is not returned back to my bank. Then money 200 rupees, 500 rupees loss or not? Then you'll start crying, Wamo, what happened to my money? Then checked exception good, unchecked exceptions are good. Unchecked exceptions are optional to handle. Because they are optional to handle, you may write or may not write try catch and will not write exception handling logic. The values we entered or the money deducted from my account will not be handled properly. Then wrong results will come. Finally, customer lose money, na? Business application. For business application, which exceptions are good? Checked or unchecked? If next level faculties are convincing you, unchecked exceptions are good, checked exceptions are bad, understand their example. I gave my example, Paytm example I gave. Are you following? And I'm telling unchecked exceptions are not good. Okay, because they are optional to handle, we don't write try catch, finally program terminated abnormally. Checked exceptions are good because every level is warning, try to understand, and you find your own answer. In some situation, this is good. In some other situation, that is good. Give my example for checked exception best. Give his checked exception best. Don't too much argue with that faculty. Are you following? When you are arguing with the faculties, if a faculty like me, okay, 2 to 3 times, scold you and then accepted, somehow convinced and allow you. If a crack fellow, array, you are experienced, I am experienced, a stupid fellow, let me remove you from the class and remove you from the class. Are you following? So that's why carefully understand the faculty and mentality. And if he is supporting to you, understanding your problem and explaining you, convincing you, it's okay. Otherwise, when you argue with him, you are experienced, I am experienced, stupid fellow, get out from the class. And if you're throwing out, then unnecessarily you're losing the session. Okay? Polite way, ask them, sir, I have one doubt, sir. What is your doubt? Okay, sir, exception is this one, that is the problem, this is the problem, but you are saying the clarity. Right way ask, maybe he will explain. Okay, no? My last question. Ready? I myself has thrown yesterday throw new illegal argument exception. Tell me, is this illegal argument exception checked or unchecked? Checked or unchecked? Because I am throwing checked. I can throw any exception. Using throw keyword, I can throw error type exception. I can throw runtime exception. Also, I can throw checked exception. Any 3 categories of exceptions I can throw. Exception. I have not written throws keyword. I have not written try catch. That means compiler thrown any error? No. Then that means it is a checked or unchecked? Unchecked. Understood? Yes. How compiler knows that is a checked exception or unchecked exception? Understand? If I don't try to throw keyword, compiler has not thrown error. Why? Because the exception is a unchecked exception type. How compiler software knows illegal argument exception is a unchecked exception type. So I should not check its handling. If not handle, I should not throw error. How? Malla throws keyword under word. How line is an animal? Real में देखता है. In Java, how compiler knows line is an animal? That's what I am asking, ra. That's what I am asking. Why are you using your dirty brains? How compiler software knows illegal argument exception is a unchecked exception type. How it knows? Type. I'm using my word type. How compiler know line is a animal type? How compiler student is a dinosaur type? How knows? Huh? By seeing it's a super class. Tell me, how compiler a particular exception is a checked or unchecked exception? By seeing it's a super class. If it's super class is error, or if it's super class is the runtime exception, it is a don't verify handling. Don't verify handling. Okay, na? If it is not error type, if it is not a runtime exception type, it is a checked exception. So we must verify it's a and means where you should write throws that exception class name or try catch with that exception class name. Otherwise, I should throw error until he write throws or try catch. Otherwise, yes. Tell me, how compiler verifies this? What is its super class? How compiler verify the type of the class? How you know a object is of this class type or not? How can you check the type of the object is of this class or not? How can you find a given object type is this particular class or not? Two string. Let me hang you today. Two inheritance relation. Ade bhaiya, how to know? How can you find programmatic? With extends keyword, you created inheritance relation. How can I know this object is the class type or not? With eyes, you can see extends. Programmatically, how can you tell? Super class. Super call, with the super call, you call the members available in super class. Using super call, but how can we know an object is of particular class type or not? Now, did you understand why I combined you both batches? I don't want to scold 2 times. Daily I am scolding 2 times. Morning 1 time, same scolding evening 1 time. Why 2 times scold? Scolding 2 times, I am getting tired 2 times. How can we find object type? Instance of operator. And you are such a intelligent people, answer there on the board also you cannot tell. That's why I'm not looking at you. That's why I'm not looking at you. You give the right answer already. If I look at you, start shouting big, all people catch your answer. That's why I'm not looking at you. Okay. When you give right answer, I don't look at you. When you give wrong answer, I look at you to scold more. Okay. Answer already I'm displayed on the board. But still, you are such a intelligent people. Okay. That's why nowadays I'm not scolding. I just get retired from scoldings. Okay. Simple questions also, if you don't answer, how can you pass exams or why? Where is a problem? My problem, your problem, so many batches attending problem. Your problem, not my problem. Thank you, Rawa. Okay. My problem, our problem. So when you study, when you do revision, after course completed, Last batch, one student told, sir, what nonsense are you saying, sir? First you complete course. We have a habit. After in BTech also, intermediate also, 10th class also, first teacher complete full syllabus. Then we have preparation holidays, that study. You also complete syllabus silently. Don't expect instant answers, instant studying, instant understanding. That is your mistake, sir. After batch completed, we will take care of it. Okay. You complete, share material, we will study, we will pass exam. We know how to pass exam. Okay. After passing exam in company, how can I write code? Huh? That time you will get pressure. Every day you are coming back from the office to room with happy mind or with a sad pressure mind. Then once you lay down on the bed, on top of one fan is running. Then fan look at you and smile. Pressure, aja. Okay. Hey, इतना pressure life क्यों इसको leave करो, छोड़ दो. Okay, hang it and die. This is what the flow will come to your mind. If you remember all, study properly, understand the scenarios. In company, when the something is asking chaka, you will write the code. Now tell me. Checked exceptions are of what type? Error type or runtime exception type? Checked exceptions are of what type? Not error type, not runtime exception type. Tell me, how can compiler decide an exception is a checked or unchecked? An exception which is not of subtype error, not subtype of runtime exception, then it is a checked exception. Then verify whether this exception is handled by using throws keyword or catch by using try catch. If no, throw compile time error. Otherwise, don't throw compile time error. Now observe now the code now. In the program, somewhere I have written throw new arithmetic exception. Arithmetic exception is resource missing representing exception. Operator failure representation. When you read the class name, you will understand. Okay, operator failure. When operator failure exception comes under runtime exception, by seeing the exception class name, you can guess it is a error type or runtime exception type. Error type exceptions all ends with what? Error. Out of memory error. No class defounder error, no such method error, in no such field error, class format error, linkage error. Like this, exceptions whose name ends with error or the subclasses are what? Error. Easily we can identify. Next, the exceptions, both the runtime exception and exception are ends with what? Exception. Sir, then how can I identify this exception is a checked answer? Simple. Look at the exception class name before name. The name is what? Error message information. Arithmetic exception. It is a resource operator. Null pointer operator. Class casting operator. Illegal argument. Argument is also kind of arguments means operator related only. Na? Values are using in the operator only. So tell me. Next. Number format exception. Number is an argument. Again, it is what? Operator related. Follow. Not found a exception. Class not found. It is a input value or operator related or resource related. File not found. SQL exception. SQL is what? Database. It is a query. SQL is a query, right? So resource related. AWT exception. AWT window. Window is a resource. Na? Then next socket exception. Socket is a network connection. Network connection is also resource. So what is the important? When you see the exception class name, you should decide it is a operator related problem or it is a resource related problem. Resource related checked exception. Operator related unchecked exception. Handling that exception mandatory or optional? Optional. Resource related exception handling mandatory. Done? Understood? Tell me. When in the pro, I myself turn to arithmetic exception, then compiler will take that class as to instance of operator condition. Compiler is a software developed by using Java. Whatever the program project you develop, like that, compiler software is also one project developed using Java only. So inside Java, it is reading that line, take the class name, by using class.forName, it create the object, pass the object error or E. Are you following my point? If not E instance of error or not E instance of runtime exception, then what is this? It is a throwable or exception subtype. That means it's checked or unchecked. Then immediately it will have the verification logic whether this exception is handled or not handled. All people understand? Right. If no handle by using throws keyword or not handled by error, this exception you didn't handle. Sorry, I will. Exception is an object which is an instance of throwable or one of its subclasses. Exceptions are divided into how many types? Checked and unchecked exception. Okay. And what is checked exception? What is unchecked exception? An exception which is subclass of error or runtime exception or unchecked exception, their handling is not checked by compiler. If I don't handle, it will not throw error. What is checked exception? An exception that is a direct subclass of throwable or direct subclass of exception is called checked exception. Its handle is checking by compiler. If I don't handle, compiler will throw error. If we enter question, how compiler software knows if your exception is checked or unchecked exception? Show your talent by using instance of operator condition. It will verify the object is subclass, not subclass of error, not subclass of runtime exception. Then it is considered as checked exception. Will you by heart and remember? Points are easy, na? Read it. Two types of checked and unchecked. When we throw an exception, if compiler checking this exception handling, if you don't handle this exception either by reporting or by catching, if we get compile time error, we will call this exception as checked exception. When we throw an exception, if compiler is not checking this exception handling, we don't handle this exception either by reporting or by catching. If you don't get compile time error, we will call this exception as unchecked exception. Checked exceptions are direct subclasses of error and runtime exception. Remaining all exceptions are checked exception. When we find serious or huge data loss, when we are accessing outside resources, .class file, database, network connections, in that situation, we must create an exception as checked exception. Repeating again. When should I create an exception as checked exception or unchecked exception? Checked exception or unchecked exception representing runtime error. When we find serious or huge data loss, for example, money transactions I am doing. If program terminated abnormal in the middle, then huge data loss will come or not? To handle the data loss problem, what type of exception I should use? Checked exception. Or when we are accessing outside resources, then to represent these runtime errors, we should create an exception as checked exception. Next, data loss is there, but it is not a huge loss. Okay, we can ignore it. For example, I am taking two numbers to add two numbers. You are passing negative numbers. I throw exception. I didn't catch exception. Any data loss? No. By seeing error, and one more time you are passing 10. 10 is a just number. It is not representing any cash. It's not representing any money. Data loss there or not there? Not there. Again, we enter positive number. Even though you don't catch exception, any problem? No. For example, you take company owner is going out of that office. Then security checking his pockets. I am the owner. If I am stealing my data, it is my problem. Why you worry? Are you following? Yes. Checking owner is unchecked. Are you following? Checking employees. Check. Because if employees steal the data, the problem will come to company. Huge loss, na? Is carrying the data and starting his own company, or carrying the data and selling to competitor company. So employee should check, checked exception. Owner no need to check, unchecked exception. When owner is going, security standing in front of, 1 minute, let me check what stealing. Hey, my data, why I will steal, right? Are you following my point? Hope you understand. When data will loss will be there, but we can ignore, not accessing outside resources. These errors we should handle by using unchecked exception. Samajh mein aaya? Okay. Now I have a question. Try to answer. I am going on the road. On the road, there are some up and downs. Road damage is there, up and downs are there. Every up and down, one board is sticked. Is it a good or bad? There is a small up and downs are there. I can see I am walking on the road, or I am going on the vehicle, but I will go in a slow, like around 10-20 kilometer speed I am going. Even car is moving that side, this side, like the jumping. I can manage and there is no accident. Then putting the boards every place is a good idea, bad idea? That is unchecked exception is good. I am going on a highway road. Road damage is there. Board diversion, road diversion board is not there. Then huge damage, life gone. Because on the highway road, I am traveling in the car at the speed of 110-150 kilometers. When there is a huge road damage is there, if the board is not the road diversion, in that speed I will go directly. Next Janma only I will come back. Are you following? Yes. Then tell me, the road, both are road damage. Where you are going slow, you can manage. Where you are going fast, no recover. Okay. When there is no chance of recovering, if you want compulsory recover, then I have to use what? Exception and check. There is a small damage will happen and there is no much bigger problem. Then you can take it as what? Unchecked. Don't think too much. If you are more stressing the checked unchecked exception, you will get confused. Final feel, very tough topic. Simple one statement, let us conclude. Okay. Mandatory to handle exceptions are? Optional to handle exceptions are? How compiler find this is checked or unchecked? Exception which is subclass of error or runtime exception are unchecked. Remaining all exceptions are means throwable, error and their direct subclasses are checked. When we throw or JVM throw, unchecked exception, handling is no need to write throws, no need to write try catch. When we throw checked exception, it's mandatory to handle by using throws or try catch, otherwise compiler throw exception. For example, small road damages representing runtime errors are unchecked exception. Highway road damage representing that board must be placed. That is what? Checked exception. Otherwise, life loss. That is real time example. Now let us, real world example. Real time example. I'm taking two numbers to add I'm taking two numbers for adding. If you pass negative number, I'm throwing exception not reported. There is no much problem. I am taking two numbers, which is account number and balance. That is wrong values. If I don't handle properly, or I am deducting the money from your account and not handling properly that situation, then lot of data loss, money loss. So that's why we should take that exception as check. Clear? Pakka? Damn sure? Tell me, how can you throw checked or unchecked exception? Either you or JVM want to throw exception in abnormal conditions. Then how can we throw? By using throw keyword. Will JVM report exception using throws? No. As a programmer, I should report exception? Yes. How can I report exception? Throws. Reporting checked exception using throws keyword, mandatory. Reporting unchecked exception using throws keyword, option. When we throw exception from business logic, user logic must be catch. If not catch, program terminated abnormally, values are lost and you have to start again from the beginning. If you want a normal termination or end of the method, at least Types of exceptions, handling exception, optional to handle. Okay, handling exception, two ways of handling exception using throws and try catch. Optional to handle, mandatory to handle. If I don't handle exception, what happen? If I handle exception, what happen? Either it is checked or unchecked exception. If I don't handle, program terminated abnormally. Previously entered all values are lost. If you catch exception, previously entered values I can recover. I can store somewhere and I can make the user to use those values again in the next transaction. Everyone understood?
Yes.
And do you understand clearly difference between throw and throws?
Yes.
Tell me, throws keyword doing any work at runtime? No, it is just telling to compiler, I am throwing this exception. Immediately compiler verify is this exception, checked, unchecked. If unchecked, silent. No need to do any work. If it is all the stages in the business logic and also user logic, all the stages you handle or not, it is verify. Then give this all exception. Tell me, error type exceptions, runtime exceptions are throwing by JVM, can also throw by programmer, but we never throw. Runtime exceptions are throwing by JVM. Programmer also can throw. Sometimes we will throw. Following? Checked exceptions are only thrown by programmer. JVM never throw. Programmer ante you are Sun Microsystem API developer also. System API developer also programmer. Understand? Class dot for name. Okay, that is throwing by class not found exception, throwing by class dot for name. Now that is these exceptions. All the exceptions you are seeing here are throwing either by JVM or by API developer, Java API developer. Repeating again, all these exceptions by JVM are throwing by API developer because lack of memory, because of operator failure, because of wrong inputs, because of wrong logic, because of missing resources. Following on?
Yes.
Final conclusion, everyone got clarity here? Now the question. All these exceptions are developed to represent the runtime errors which are coming from JVM, which are coming from Java API. Any exception given to handle the runtime errors for our project? Let me take bank project again. In bank project, I am taking deposit amount. I am taking deposit amount, account number, PIN number. I have to verify or not. If those values are wrong, I must throw exception. Tell me which exception? Choose one exception. From the list, choose one exception. Correct. I am giving to the cashier account number, may be wrong. I am giving PIN number, may be wrong. I am giving deposit amount, may be wrong. I am giving withdraw amount, may be wrong. This wrong input on project should be handled, na? For that one exception required, na? Tell me, which exception I have to use? Error type exceptions, no. Either runtime exceptions or checked exception. Exceptions are meant for resource. Tell me, are these are resources related? Then argument related. Now all these are what? Arguments. Tell me, which exception I have to use? Arithmetic, index out of one, number format, null pointer, class cast, illegal argument exception. I can use illegal argument exception, but is it suitable to my project? Why? Excellent. Because it is unchecked exception. Because it is unchecked exception, is there any exception? Yesterday, I forgot to write throws keyword. That's why today first 5 minutes, 10 minutes I explained. Are you following? Why I forgot? Because compiler not warned me. As per my project requirement, I should throw exception, I thrown. As per my project requirement, I should catch exception, I catch. Because I am the add method developer, I am only the main method developer method caller. I know that I am throwing exception. So I have written try catch. Understood? Company developer is someone with somewhere in the world available. Add method caller is somewhere else available in the world. Then how can I inform to the user programmer? How can I guarantee my exception is catched? The exception should be checked or unchecked. Then tell me, illegal argument exception is suitable for my project or not suitable? Not suitable. Then what to do? The Sun Microsystem given exceptions are not suitable to my project. Then what should I do? I have to create my own exception. All you guys understand? Tell me, is there any class representing your project object student? Is there any class representing your project object bank account? No. Then what you did? We created our own class. Class student, class employee, class bank account, class laptop, class loan, class laptop, class, different objects names, right? Similarly, Sun Microsystem given all exceptions are their own specific, their own runtime handling exception. For my project, I should create my own class. Up to now, already traveling. Any of you dropped in the middle? Want to rejoin? Drop or rejoin? No, no. In our rooms, playing cards, no? No? Hey, you are not playing cards, not studying Java. Then what are you doing? Only studying. That's why brain not working. If you are only studying, brain will get blasted. There was one ad called Eclair's chocolate ad. When he is putting the chocolate inside his mouth, then the brain blasted, no? Like that, your brain also get blasted. Wow. Why you are studying morning to evening? Don't study. It's a bad habit. Your brain should have refreshment also. That's why what I told, 2 hours you have to spend time for entertainment also. YouTube, Instagram reels. If you watch YouTube shorts and Instagram reels, 100% you are wasting the time. Why? You are using only eyes, not using brain. No work to the brain. That's why play cards, play chess, play carom board, indoor games. And there is some game called Jadi game. Telugu people. Candy Crush, Nora. It is not chess. Huh? It's not Ludo. Are coming in one line. Okay, in Telugu, you have to play hostel with your friends. Understood? If you are just wasting the time with your mobile, you have to use your brain, lot of calculation. You have to make it sharp. At least now onwards, start chess game, most powerful game. Buy chessboard. Ludo, what your brain you are using in Ludo? What a fella? Only throwing that dice and then what number coming, you are moving. Ludo is LKG level game, time pass game. I am not saying play time pass games. I am saying time pass memory usage games. Huh? What do you call it? Reasoning. Reasoning should improve. State parents are good. Whenever I am talking, why you people talk, ra? Asal this minimum common sense also you don't have, then how can you understand Java? I know. Okay. Chalo. So, Ray, please, Ray. Finally, what is the story? You have to create our own exception class. That exception class is called what? Checked exception, custom exception, or user defined exception. An exception class that is newly created by a developer is called custom or user defined exception, newly created. Now tell me, I created a class A, open bracket, closed bracket. Then is it an exception class? No, it is a class. Means it is a subclass of whom? Object. Which class is considered as an exception? Throwable subtype. Then only we can use that class object to throw with a throw keyword. Then only we can use that class name with a throws keyword to report. Then only we can use that class name with a catch block to catch its object. Understand? So if you want to consider a class as a exception type class, you must create that class as a subtype of word. Throwable. Look at there. I'm creating class called animal. Class lion extends animal. Then only that class is considered as animal. Class Lenovo extends from laptop. Then only it is considered as class apple extends fruit. Then only it is considered as fruit type of class. Similarly, if you want to say my class A is an exception class, then if you write just class A open bracket, closed bracket, is it considered as an exception class? No. You must create your class either as a subclass of throwable or one of its subclasses. Exception, runtime exception. Totally, how many options we have? Four. Class A extends throwable. Class A extends error. Class A extends exception. Class A extends runtime exception. Okay, na? Tell me which option is best? Throwable is best. Huh? Which option is best? Throwable, exception, throwable, error, runtime exception, exception. Exception is best. Wonderful answer. Why? Okay, let us take one option. What Sun Microsystem suggested? Hey, all exceptions must be divided into two categories. Number one, JVM level problems. Number two, API level problems. JVM level problems and program level problems. JVM level problems are represented by error. Program level problems are represented by exception. That's all. If you write your class deriving from throwable, you are creating third category classes. Na? This third category representing whom? There are two types of runtime errors only there. Number one, either coming from JVM or coming from the program. Coming from the JVM represented by error. Coming from the JVM, coming from the program represented by exception. Then why you are creating third category? This third category representing whom? So there is a right design or wrong design? Wrong design. So don't create your own class deriving from throwable. Creating from throwable is wrong idea. Everyone agreed? You have to tell to interviewer. Okay. Second option. Create your class deriving from the error. Right design or wrong design? Syntactically, no problem. Compilation wise, JVM wise, no problem. But the design wise, wrong design. Why? It's not because of unchecked. Think. If you create your class extend from error, your class representing whose runtime errors? JVM level runtime errors. Are you creating a custom exception to represent runtime error problems or project problem? That means the wrong impression you are giving in the project or not? Right design or wrong design? Wrong design. Okay, next option. Create your class deriving from runtime exception or derive from exception. Both options are good. But if your exception representing runtime error become wrong inputs which are just values,
just numbers. There is no big loss in the project. Even though exception coming, no problem, we can recover and continue. Then that exception, we should create a subtype of runtime exception so that it is optional to handle and programmer will not face much problem. Code will not become clumsy. Understand?
Yes.
If your exception representing runtime error, where use data loss or representing some resources missing, then you have to create your class as checked exception. For that, you have to create subtype of exception. So if you want to make your class optional to handle, create it as a subclass of runtime exception. If you want to make your exception mandatory to handle, create it as a checked exception derived from what? Exception. Is it clear? Right. Now read the point. If you want to handle this custom exception mandatorily, we must derive it from exception class. It will be a fully checked exception. If you want to handle this custom exception optionally, we must derive it from runtime exception class. It will be a unchecked exception. So two options are good. Class A extends exception and class A extends runtime exception. Clear my point? Right. Now the next question I'm asking, carefully think. What is the procedure to create a custom exception class? Your exception class must be reusable entire project, na?
Yes.
Which type of class is reusable? Packaged or non-packaged? Packaged, non-public, public? So your exception class create a packaged public class deriving from an exception class or one of its subclasses based on your requirement. Okay. That means visualize class A extends exception, open bracket, closed bracket. Inside class, we are allowed to create fields, constructors, blocks, methods, inner classes, right? Do I need to create any field inside this exception class?
No.
Fields are meant for storing values. Values are meant for representing object values. Is the exception class representing any real world object?
No.
Then why you need fields?
Yes.
Second, is this exception class should contain any methods?
Yes.
What methods?
When you show an error message, for that.
Catch block.
Catch.
Block, why you need to define a method? Are you catching my point?
Yes.
Is this exception class requires to define any setter methods, getter methods, any business logic method? Is this exception class we are developing for any business? Methods required or not required? Not required. So inside exception class, we get methods. Do we require to create the classes? No, because this is representing any outer object. No, inner object not there. Inner classes also not required. Understand?
Yes.
Create a class, public packaged class deriving from exception. Inside exception class, what should I create? Array, exception class is meant for what? Creating object and throw it from the method to terminate program. Yes or no?
Yes.
To create object with the new keyword, what we required? Constructor. So inside exception class, we need to create only. If I don't create constructor, is that class contain constructor? Answer. How much time you will? If you see, look at me seriously, then I'm feeling you don't understand. If I don't create any constructor, is the class contain constructor? Then can I create just the empty class as exception class deriving from exception?
Yes.
Then inside if condition, if A less than 0 or B less than 0, throw new. A semicolon, can I write or not? When I write new A semicolon, throws keyword optional or mandatory? Now this A class is what type of class? Checked or unchecked? Checked exception. You have to throw, when you throw, compiler verified is checked or not checked. It is a subclass of exception checked. Checked exception optional or mandatory? By using throws keyword, compiler throw, error. Yesterday I didn't write throws. Any error? No. Today if I don't write throws, error? Yes. Throws, what I should write? A. Then by seeing this throws A, the calculator programmer should catch my class na. If user class programmer didn't catch my exception A, will compiler throw error to the class calculator class? Yes, because I am reporting exception, you must catch. If you don't catch, compiler will throw error. So tell me, in my method, compiler forced me to handle. In the calculator class, also forced you to handle. Finally, my exception catched properly and problem solved or not?
Yes.
Next question. When exception is caught by the catch block, I should display error message, na?
Yes.
Am I throwing exception with error message? No. I want to include error message. Possible or not possible? Not possible. Because, not possible because in your class, which constructor is there? Default constructor. Default constructor take any argument? No. Then right approach or wrong approach? Then your class must parameterize a constructor to take error message, na? So tell me, what is the procedure to create exception class? Create a packaged public class derived from an exception class or one of its subclasses. We must define two constructors, no param and string param. No param to create exception without error message. Param constructor to create exception with error message. Tell me, today complete class is based on yesterday class only?
Yes.
If you have practiced yesterday project, today class is? That means a complete visualization you will get. If you want to support exception chaining, what is exception? Explain. That will come on a Saturday class or Monday class. Okay, na? Right? Then up to these 2 points understood?
Yes.
Then what is the meaning of conversion? Okay, that we'll see later. Right? So finally, what is a custom exception or user defined exception understood?
Yes.
There is a one statement. Is it true or false? You have to tell. Ready? Every custom exception is by default checked exception. By default, every custom exception or user defined exception is a checked exception. False. Why? The exception is checked or unchecked is depending on how we create. If I write extending from exception, it is checked. If I write extending from runtime exception, it is unchecked. Is there any rule that I should create the class only from exception? No. People are saying wrong statement. Okay, na?
Yes.
Second point. Every checked exception is a compile time exception. Come again. A checked exception is a compile time exception. Come on. True or false? A checked exception is a compile time exception. True. Exception is a runtime error. Exception ante compilation time concept or runtime concept.
Then if you don't extend this from except for class compile would have to check first.
What you are saying, brother? I'm not asking in Hindi. Okay. I understand English. Understand my question, okay? Checked exceptions are compile time exceptions. Can you get exceptions at compilation time? Exceptions are runtime. Both checked exception and unchecked exceptions are comes at runtime only. Compilation time exceptions will not come. But many faculties are telling checked exceptions are compile time exceptions, unchecked are runtime exceptions. दिमाग है नहीं है? Do you understand my point?
Yes.
Why they are saying? Because compiler throwing error. Checked when you throw checked exception and don't handle, compiler throwing error na. By seeing that error, they confused and they say, "Array, checked exceptions are compile time exceptions." Right or wrong? Wrong. That is syntax mistakes. When remove semicolon, You will get compile time error, na? When you remove double quotes, compile time error coming, na? When you remove bracket, compile time error coming. Like how you committed syntax mistake for semicolon missing, same way, when we throw checked exception, you didn't write throws keyword or you didn't write try catch. That's why compiler is throwing error. Exception is not handled. By seeing that error message, exception is not handled. People are created a wonderful definition. Checked exceptions are compile time exception because they come at compilation time. Hey! Exceptions are not come at compilation time. The checked exception throwing statement appeared in the compilation time. Compiler software verifying the exception is handled or not. That's it. Because of the two cases, you cannot call checked exception is a compile time exception. That is wrong. So what the definition you should tell to interviewer? An exception which is not subtype of error and exception, which is who's checking it, who's handling it, checking by compiler is called what? Checked exception. That's it. Don't tell compile time exception. That is a wrong statement. So two wrong statements are going around. User defined exceptions are always checked exception. Wrong. Checked exceptions are compile time exceptions. Wrong. Hope you all understand now. Really? All points are there in your material. Okay. Now, everyone read first 10 papers of exceptional chapter. Will you?
Yes.
Today and tomorrow. Okay. Now, today you try to read and try to understand what I explained. First 10 papers of exceptional chapter you have to read. I completed. Next 10 papers are also I completed, but little confusion to you. Don't read. Okay. I will explain you from the material. First 10 papers, whatever I explain, everything you try to practice.